Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I know with the wonderful rain that we've had, that it's kept quite a few of people away, but luckily we're going to have this taped so those that are still laying in the bed can see what we talked about. This is so important for us. And Robert, where are you going? Actually, we're going to, because we're going to have a PowerPoint, we're basically going to move it to the side so that it would not be impeding this. I know with this new setup.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Okay, so we always start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and that is with Jerry Monahan and Mike Corbett.
Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mikey and I are both veterans, but we have veterans in the audience, and we wanted to say thank you for your service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And for all of the new Neighborhood Watch Block captains, we thank you so much. For those that are in the community awareness, we thank you so much. And AJ is a new person. She's back there. She's on our steering committee now. So welcome, AJ. All righty. So basically, one other thing we want to make sure that we do is, because I know I have to do it all the time, is silence your cell phone while the presentation is going on. So thank you again for coming. And at this point, I'm going to introduce Beaumont Public Relations Officer, which is Mercedes Cashmere.
Hello, good morning. I'll talk to you about a few things at the end, but I'd like to introduce Detective Acosta. Most of you are used to Officer Loza. He's filling in for Officer Loza today, so he's happy to be here, I'm sure.
I'm ecstatic to be here. Good morning, Detective Acosta. That's a little bit about myself real quick. I actually started my career with the Sheriff's Department a while back. Wasn't really for me. Went to San Bernardino PD, and that's where I, lack of a better phrase, learned how to become a cop. Was there for a few years. Didn't really care for the way the city was ran and wanted to be part of a community that really backed its law enforcement. So I've been here. Today is actually my 2-year anniversary. So thank you. So this morning we're going to be talking about, or trying to educate you guys just a little bit more if we can, on some of the scams or some of the issues that are going around, particularly in regards to senior citizens or people that maybe don't have a whole lot of knowledge about this. So we'll go ahead and get started. So some of the things we're going to be covering today, and hopefully we can clarify for you guys, is how much do you know about scams, why you're at risk for financial scams, the usual suspects and types of scams, protecting yourself and loved ones from scams, and resources to report scams for financial abuse. So 1 in 5 individuals in the U.S. age 60 plus, 1 in 20 seniors indicate recent financial mistreatment. Only 1 in 44, I apologize, my coffee's still kicking in. 1 in 44 elder financial abuse cases is ever reported to law enforcement, and only 9% of financial abuse victims must turn to Medicaid after their own funds are stolen. So real quick, I'm probably going to double cover myself. I'll just say that these crimes or scams are particularly hard to investigate. I myself had just had 4 or 5 of them, and I'd say I think 4 out of those 5 went outside the country. And that's how easy they are for these suspects to do, but they're also on the opposite side very hard to track. So I don't want to cover too much right now because I'm pretty sure it's going to be somewhere in this PowerPoint. So why scammers target seniors? Greed, your fears, frailties of aging, dependence on other, cognitive impairment, and isolation. So the grandparent scam case study. Mrs. T receives a phone call from an unidentified number. The unknown caller identifies himself as a good friend of Mrs. T's granddaughter, who he says has been arrested while traveling out of state. The caller then tells Mrs. T that he immediately needs $10,000 to post bail for her granddaughter. The caller instructs Mrs. T to go back to her bank and withdraw $10,000 in cash, place the money in a bank envelope, stuff it within the pages of a magazine, and go to the local grocery store where someone will meet her. What should she do? Anybody? You in the back, sir? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this right here, I mean, all due respect, I hate to say it, but it does happen quite often, actually. But even just the little things as, you know, placing it in the pages of a magazine, it should seem a little fishy. And if something ever doesn't seem quite right, even if you're not necessarily calling 911 and declaring an emergency, by all means, you can call us on our non-emergency line just to speak to an officer or detective and just let them know what you have. Let them know, hey, it doesn't seem quite right. What should I do? But you're absolutely right, sir. Go ahead and call law enforcement. So Mrs. T should hang up the call and take notes about the call to provide to local authorities. Mrs. T should hang up on the phone and call other family members to verify if the granddaughter is in trouble. Mrs. T may, well, that doesn't look right, should no longer pick up identified calls. So it's always a good practice to get into too. I personally don't answer phone calls from numbers I don't recognize. Or another good option is caller ID, call screening. A lot of companies now, I know Verizon does it, where they'll screen calls for you and it'll pop up on your caller ID as potential scam or spam. So that's a good option. So the usual suspects. Who are the likely perpetrators? Strangers preying on older people who may be isolated, lonely, confused, or desperate for attention. Family members to whom the person wants to stay connected, or caregivers, family and other, who use fear or guilt to take advantage of a senior. So types of scams. New scams are created every day. The best way to defend yourself is to be aware of the tactics that scammers use. So top 10 scams targeting seniors. Social Security impersonation scams, romance scams, telemarketing, investment schemes, tech support, internet fraud, funeral cemetery, Medicare, Medicaid, home repair, contractor scams, sweepstakes, Jamaican lottery scams, I'm not familiar with that one, and the grandparent scam. So real quick, I'll actually touch on a case that I just recently worked. And it just goes to show how many layers there are of these type of scams or crimes. So initially, I got it on my desk as a called a dog fraud. I know it seems weird that a dog can commit fraud, but what it actually was there was this fictitious Facebook account that was selling these golden doodles, and each one of those dogs, I don't know if you're guys are familiar with them, they're about $5,000 to $10,000 each. But either way, so what happened was you have multiple people trying to purchase these dogs, making deposits, and even some paying in full. Eventually, one of those people reported it to us. I looked into it. And initially, it looks like this one person is the one doing all this, and it's kind of like a slam dunk. But I was able to get a hold of her, and lo and behold, you find out she was actually a victim of fraud herself. She had been told that she won a sweepstake, and the only thing she had to do to claim her money was to take a picture of her photo ID and send that into them, and then she could claim her money. Of course, she didn't get anything from that, and she ended up herself getting scammed. Her accounts got hacked. But what these people did is they went and used that picture of her holding up her ID as verification, if you will, for that dog fraud. when people were asking, is this legitimate? And she'd be like, oh yeah, here you go. Here's my picture. This is me. So that one resulted in a loss of, I want to say it was $30,000 or $40,000 amongst a few different people. But like I said earlier, that one ended up leading back to, I think it was Germany. So as soon as we get that information back that it's out of the country, sad to say, but you're pretty much at a loss. We have no jurisdiction out of the country, so our investigation stops there. So again, it just shows the layers of these ones. So tips for avoiding scams. Never give out your password security information to a third party who is calling you unsolicited. If you have concerns about a slow running computer, errors, or antivirus updating, simply contact the tech support number on your software package. Sometimes there are local computer tech companies in your area. Contact the Better Business Bureau for a few trusted tech support business names and get a few quotes. I know I'm kind of speeding through this. Any questions so far? Anybody? No? All right. So never agree to anything over the phone until you've taken a chance to read it in writing. Never agree to pressure sales. Get everything in writing. Take it home, review it first. Check out the business with Better Business Bureau. If someone states they represent an organization that your loved one did business with, tell them to send it to you in writing for review. Another thing you can also do, it's actually something I do. Every once in a while, I get a phone number that I don't recognize attached with a voicemail stating they're, from this business. You can always just Google that business and see what pops up as their business address or phone number, obviously if it matches. Or you can always do what's called kind of a reverse. You just type in the phone number, and 9 times out of 10, if it's a legitimate business, it's going to automatically link it, say, it's Wells Fargo or it's Chase Bank. So just another tip for you guys to use. Protect your Medicare number as you do your credit card numbers, and do not tell anyone else. Be wary of salespeople trying to sell you something they claim will be paid for by Medicare. Review your Medicare statements to be sure you have in fact received the services billed. Report suspicious activities to 1-800-MEDICARE. Contact your local senior medical patrol program. So, tips for avoiding home repair contractor scams. I would say just in general, try to use a reputable company if possible. But if you guys choose to go with a smaller company or maybe like a friend of a friend, these are some good tips. So never do business with somebody that just shows up at your door. I know for a while back, a big scam was those Kirby vacs. Anybody's familiar with those? They would come by and say, oh, I want to do a demo for you. And then they'd follow it up with, oh, I can't do it right now, but I can come back in a few hours. And they'd more or less try to see your work schedule. And then they'd wait till you're not home, and then they'd come and burglarize your home. So just be wary of those. I'll continue. Never pay up front the whole job. Wait until all work is complete and inspected. If this company's not comfortable with you guys doing a deposit, it's probably not a good company to do business with. If you would like to pressure an offer, get the name of the business, telephone, and physical location of the company, and tell them you will call them back. Even if they urge you to do business now, then check them out with Better Business Bureau. Get it in writing. Call the Better Business Bureau at 804-648-0016. Lottery scams. Legitimate lottery sweepstakes take the taxes and other fees out of any winning before you receive it. You cannot win if you did not play. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If something just pops up and you're a winner, chances are it's fictitious or a scam. United States citizens cannot play and win foreign lotteries. It is illegal. Questions so far?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a scam. Something happened here on dent repair scam, that it came in our daily reports, and some people were going around saying, we'll fix the dent in your car, and I guess they were scamming people. So it came out in our we have what we call the daily report news, and down at the bottom, it says, don't go for that, because they were in here doing that.
So we had a couple reports of those, like at, I think Beaumont Avenue at Stater Brothers. So basically what they did was they said that they noticed your car had an impact on the side of it or something, or they said, oh, I hit your car, let me fix it, I'll fix it right here. It's high pressure, high demand, they want you to go right to the ATM, pull out money, pay them $300, $400, or $500 to fix it right there on the spot. So you don't have a lot of time to like make decisions or decide to fix it. It's very, like I said, very high pressure. So if you run into those situations, get in your car, lock your door, just call law enforcement. That's the best way to avoid that.
Okay, so continuing on, tips for avoiding grandparent scams. Hang up and call your grandchild or parent of the grandchild from a number you know. If you feel compelled to listen and you are worried that this may be real, start asking a lot of questions like, what's your sister's name or what's your great aunt's name? Ask something that a scammer may not be privy to. Some families will also set up a password that only they know, and in times like this, you can ask your grandchild for the family password. I actually have something similar like this with some of my family members, and it's typically a nickname, which I'm not going to share with you guys, from when I was really little, and that will usually squash any questions or worries that it's legitimate. Protecting yourself and your loved ones. Identity theft. Without your consent, someone using your personal information, social security, credit card, or driver's license number to access your accounts, open up new accounts, or apply for loans or mortgage is in fact a crime. Medical identity theft. Without your consent, someone using your personal and health insurance information to get medical treatment, prescription, drugs, and/or surgery. Common ways to steal identity. Shoulder surfing. Someone looking over your shoulders as you fill out forms or use your PIN at an ATM, or listening to give your credit card number over the phone. Dumpster diving. Someone going through garbage for copies of your checks or credit card or bank statements, or pre-approved credit card mailings in order to activate the cards. And phishing scams. Emails that appear to form a legitimate company or institution, like the IRS, asking you to update or verify your personal information. So again, I kind of go off on tangents all the time. When I was working in San Bernardino, there was one case in particular where they were going around specifically targeting people that were coming out of the banks that had just made large withdrawals. Luckily, we were able to catch them after they took this elderly woman hostage and went to a bunch of different ATMs, cleared out her bank accounts, and then just dropped her off somewhere. But again, we were able to catch them, and they were actually, for criminals, very forthcoming about how they did what they did. And they said they would specifically look for people that were not paying attention, coming out of the bank either on your phone, paying attention to something else in your hand. So we urge people, especially there, we send out flyers, just be wary, be cognizant of your surroundings. Don't be paranoid, but definitely be vigilant, especially coming out of a bank, or even ladies getting into your vehicle by yourselves. I know it's kind of going off on a tangent, but it kind of all ties together, just being aware of your surroundings. Don't sit with your car door open for a while, rummaging through your purse, get in your car and lock the door. And then also, where'd it go? Dumpster diving. I highly urge you guys to get a shredder, if not a shredder, even a little burn pit or burn barrel in your backyard, fireplace, if you guys are able to do that. Anything tied to or associated with banking information, credit cards, social security, medical, private information, burn it or shred it. You can never be too safe nowadays, because unfortunately dumpster diving is a legitimate thing, and it has actually in fact a crime here in Beaumont. It's a municipal code. You can't be going through trash, because typically speaking, trash, once it hits the street, is exactly, there's no expectation of privacy. However, Beaumont does have a municipal code about rummaging through trash. So if you guys see that, you can always call it into us. Questions? Yes, oh, I think you raised your hand first, sir.
To that, regarding dumpster diving or the like here in the community itself?
Nothing specific to my knowledge, but I know it's something that I definitely used to look out for when I was working patrol, especially those late night hours or early morning hours when the trash cans are just sitting out there by themselves before it's collected. A lot of times people aren't going to be up, they're not going to be paying attention. So you'll see those people, sometimes even in cars, and that's how you can really tell they're looking for something specific and they're not just like collecting cans. And they'll be going through, as opposed to going for the cans, they're going for documents, papers, looking at them and then taking them if it's something they can use. But nothing specific that I've heard of in our community. Ma'am? So I don't want to give you the politician answer and say it all depends, but it all depends. It's what we like to use a phrase, totality of circumstances, time of day. Do I recognize the person? Me personally as an officer, exactly, more or less reading their demeanor, what they're doing. Either way, we can absolutely, regardless if it's cans or not, I will typically tell somebody, like, hey, just so you know, this is illegal, and they sometimes try to give you the argument, oh, well, it's public property. Like, no, you're right, once it hits the street. However, like I stated earlier, in the city of Beaumont, we have a municipal code saying that you cannot go through the trash. Correct. It's a ticket. It's a ticket, but either way, it's still something that we can address. And then obviously, if that person is being difficult, then there's always other routes that we as officers can start taking with that person to enforce it, because chances are, if they're being that difficult, they're up to no good.
Would you repeat the question because the people down here can't hear? What was her question?
If someone's just taking cans out of the trash, would that be illegal as well? Or would the police stop them, or do they look to see if they're digging for more personal information and not just picking up cans?
Yeah, and so just again to recap real quick, yes, either way, rummaging through trash, let alone making a mess, is still a violation of the municipal code. I cannot talk this morning, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Being new to the community, I was reading a lot of the new material, or old material that came with the house. And one of the things I noticed, and it was also mentioned at the last one of the last meetings I was at, where the waste management has cameras on their dumpster trucks that will take pictures of what is in your container. Being the paranoid person, overly paranoid person I am, that scares me on a couple levels. One of them was mentioned at the meeting, that they're checking whether you're putting the right stuff in the right containers. The other, to your point of dumpster diving, could that potentially lead to them being able to recognize some of your personal materials in the trash bins?
I would like to say no, but then again, it's unfortunate you have bad people in every single profession on this planet, so it's a very real possibility. I know myself, I have been fined for that because my kids threw some trash in the recyclables, and I got a notice the next time around saying, there's not supposed to be trash in there, you're going to be fined. So it's actually a pretty clear picture, and what they'll do is they'll snapshot that picture, and they will throw it on your citation that you get, saying that this is your trash that was collected, and it was in the recyclables. So it's actually pretty good cameras. It's at the top of the truck where the trash actually goes in. But to answer your question, sir, it probably could be. If they really wanted to, they probably could use it for that. It is, which is why I say if you can get a shredder, burn your stuff, just anything you can do to safeguard yourself. I hope that answered your question. Absolutely.
3 or 4 comments or slides back was on Medicaid or Medicare, and the middle comment had to do with examining your EOBs, your bills that come in every month. Make sure you read that. And there it is. where it says, review your Medicare statements to be sure you have in fact received the services billed. It's more important than people realize, because between 5 and 8% of medical bills, Medicare bills, are fraudulent. Perhaps not necessarily on purpose, but they're incorrect. Between 5 and 8%. When we do 40 or 50 billion a year, 5 to 8% is a lot of money. And you get these bills, these EOBs once a month, just go through them and you'll remember what's happened in the last 30 days. It's very, very easy to do.
I completely agree, and it's the same thing with your bank statement. A lot of people just throw it away or don't even bother to check. Now, absolutely, checking your bank statements, even just skimming through it to see if everything looks correct. I believe this is where we left off. So ways to protect your identity: invest in and use a paper shredder, monitor your bank and credit card statements, stamp out identity theft with an ID guard stamp. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with what those are. I believe Office Depot, Staples, they sell them. And it's a stamp that literally has like cross-hatching or a bunch of lines in it, but it's to the point where you should not be able to read what was stamped over. So do not fall for phishing scams. When in doubt, call the institution the email claims to come from, or research the potential scam online. Beware of telephone scams. Never give out personal information over the phone to someone who initiates a contact with you. Be careful with your mail. Do not let incoming mail sit in your mailbox for a long time. When sending out sensitive mail, consider dropping it off at a secure collection box or directly at the post office. So if you suspect you're a victim of identity theft, contact your bank's credit card companies immediately. File a report with us, Beaumont Police Department. Police may not be able to do very much themselves, but you may need a police report in order to clear up the problem. File with the Federal Trade Commission by using its online complaint form, or call the theft hotline at 187-ID-THEFT. Put out a fraud alert to the credit reporting agencies, i.e. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So, top 8 ways to protect yourself. Be aware that you're at risk from strangers and from those closest to you. Do not isolate yourself. Stay involved. Always tell solicitors, I never buy from or give to anyone who calls or visits me unannounced. Send me something in writing. Shred all receipts with your credit card number. Sign up for the do not call list. Use direct deposit for benefit checks. Never give your credit card, banking, Social Security, Medicare, or other personal information over the phone unless you initiated the call. Be skeptical. Yes, sir, in the back.
Maybe about 50% effective. What happens, my understanding when researching that, is you can be on the do not call list, but if you call somebody like, say, Home Depot and give them a phone number, they're allowed to then pass that on to other third-party people, et cetera, and so forth. So the do not call list, from my perspective, is not as effective as it is presented to be.
I definitely agree. And just to touch on what you were saying, pretty much anything you guys sign up for, Netflix, any of those online streaming services, Home Depot, there's a lot of fine print down at the bottom that says that you give this company permission to share your phone number and contact information with third parties, which is why a lot of times I don't sign up for those. That's just me personally, because I completely agree with you, sir. Especially being in law enforcement, my privacy is everything to me. So protect your loved ones. Signs to look for: unusual recent changes in a person's accounts, including atypical withdrawals, new persons added, or sudden use of senior's ATM or credit card. Person suddenly appears confused, unkempt, and afraid. Utility, rent, mortgage, medical, or other essential bills are unpaid despite adequate income. Caregiver will not allow others to access a senior. Piled up sweepstakes, mailings, magazine subscriptions for free gifts, which means they may be on suckers lists. So absolutely, specifically the first one. I'll share another quick story of another case I worked. It was just recently. The victim and her husband were out somewhere within the city. Her husband's phone was stolen, and unfortunately, he had all his banking apps on his phone, but he did not have a lock for his phone. So these people were automatically able to log into all his banking accounts. They immediately started adding, and by say they, the suspects immediately started adding their own emails and phone numbers to these people's bank accounts so they could start getting money sent to them. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. Services like Zelle, I use a lot. However, with that, the only thing you need is a phone number or an email. So if one of those two things are added to your bank account, you can now send that person money or they can receive money from you. Long story short, they ended up getting around $10,000 from these people. And again, it's one of those ones where through some digging, you end up finding out that the accounts that the money was sent to were out of the country. So that most likely means you had a less desirable person going around stealing the phones, and they probably sold it to somebody for a couple $100, and that person now had all this information, and they were able to start removing money. But what I'm getting at is paying attention to your accounts. Is luckily this person, after the phone was taken, paid attention and noticed all these weird emails and phone numbers popping up, and they were able to report it to us. Although we weren't able to catch the suspect in the end, we were still able to make a report of it, and they were able to catch it and eventually get their money back. Next steps for victims of financial fraud. Don't be afraid or embarrassed to talk about it. Waiting can only make it worse. Immediately call your bank and or credit card company. Cancel any credit cards linked to the number or correction of the stolen account. Reset your personal identification numbers. Call police and file a report. So absolutely do not wait because it could only get worse. Even if you think you've just lost it and it wasn't specifically stolen, I would absolutely call the bank and freeze that account or get a new card sent out to you, just to be on the safe side. And also with that, I think that's the most common thing that we're told by victims of identity theft or scams is they get embarrassed and they say, I should have known better. Saying it out loud to you, given their statement, they say it sounds very silly. But again, sometimes it does, and which is why you should be cognizant and vigilant with paying attention to this stuff. But at the same time, if you're a victim, you're a victim. Don't blame yourself. So I believe that is it. If you have any questions, I know I kind of sped through that, and I apologize. But is there any questions from anybody? Maybe you guys have a specific incident or just a general question that you want to ask.
I've noticed now and then I'll get a text or an email from, it started out with AT&T, then I've gotten them from so-called Amazon. But what I notice is that the structure of the sender is peculiar. And I also went to Google, like on the AT&T one, I Googled it, see scams by AT&T, and there was my scam. And so they list some as well, but yeah, they're out there. One time I got called, I think a lot of people may have gotten this, where they call and say your computer needs, and so first couple times I got those, I just hung up, and then the third time I just decided to have fun with them, and I said, which computer? I have several, and went on and on. I said, can I speak to your boss? And by the time we got done, I had a guy on the phone. It sounded like it was probably a foreign, and he was yelling at me, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are very common. I Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I have a question. I received, it was actually very good from PayPal. What I did is I did call PayPal. They told me it wasn't from them. They gave me this web thing for me to go to, and actually an email to send him that information, kind of forward it to them. It, for some reason, didn't work. Who do I approach? Do I just leave it there, or should I have called somebody else, or you guys, or what?
If you think it's a fraud or scam, sir, by all means, you can contact us. If you'd like, I can actually speak with you after we're done here, and you can share a little bit more with me, and we can look into it.
Okay, so, yeah, somehow they kind of just, they send me to this, they gave me this email. So what I should do, if I listen correctly, is that I should get in contact with you, send you guys, actually your department, send them the email I received?
Sure. And like I said, if it turns out to be nothing, we can at least look into it for you, which is why I said after we're done here, by all means, I can talk to you and at least see what you have and tell you whether it's something that may possibly be a crime or a scam. And then at that point, we'd have you make a report, a formal report, or it could just be, I don't know, it could be nothing. It just really all depends without knowing the full facts.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. So real quick, yes, ma'am.
Wait.
Nope. I said that we're not answering it, we're not logging on to PayPal. So I think what happens a lot of times is these companies get scammed, but you don't know it. And what they just do is do these blast emails or messages to try to get you to get back into the system so they then get the whole piece of data they need, which is your log on, your password, and your account. So don't touch your stuff. Bank America was going through a bunch of fraudulent issues about 3-4 months ago. I kept getting these
Claudia.
emails from B of A.
Put that up here.
And I called them on their security center. If you go onto their website, their generic website, you'll see where they say contact us, and you'll see their security center. And you can email them or phone them. And they usually they give you a secure email site to go send the data that you received so that they can track it and check it out. But if it's an email or a message, there's really nothing local police can do, because it literally is not coming from Beaumont.
Yep, you're correct. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So with that, I was going to touch on that real quick. If you get an email that doesn't look quite right, or I believe you were talking about some of the jargon or phrases just looks off, I don't know if you guys are aware, at the top of the email when it says who it's from, open that portion up. Don't touch the rest of the email, but just open at least the sender information, and it should, if it's legitimate, end in whatever that company is, Amazon.com or Amazon.org. If it looks funny and it has all these extra parts or whatever after the fact, chances are it's fake, and absolutely do not click on any of the links, because once you do, they can do what's called telnetting, which allows them a backdoor into your computer. And like this young lady over here was saying, they can start tracking all your keystrokes, see your passwords and what accounts you're visiting, and that's how a lot of times they get your information. So absolutely.
Let's give him a big hand.
So thank you, Detective Acosta, for standing in for Officer Loza. I just want to remind everyone that the Beaumont PD is available online. We have a website you can go to. We do have a page on our website explicitly for scam information, so you can click on that. You can get links to common scams. We put out information via the website, so if you go there, there's a portion that says Notify Me. You can sign up for our press releases and things that go out through that. We're also on social media, so we're on Facebook, Nextdoor, Instagram, Twitter. So please follow us to keep up with things that are going on. I'm the one who's responsible for that, both on the city and the PD side. So if you're sending messages, I'm the one who's responding to you. So if I don't know the answer, I'll get the answer to you as soon as I can. But it's a good way to keep in touch and see what's going on at the city and the department.
Okay.
Thank you. Of course. I try to do that once a week. In law enforcement, we have busy seasons and slower seasons. Some weeks are slower than others, so sometimes you'll see a lot of stuff happening at once, and then sometimes not really much at all. So just be aware of that. I think you had a question, sir? That's a good question. It probably does. Most of them do. I go on it so frequently, it doesn't ask me that. So, yeah, you can opt in for some of that, or you can not accept it. So,
Would you say a little bit about what we were talking about on the train?
okay. So I know the train is a hot topic here with our Four Seasoners. The city is in communication with Congressman Ruiz's office to figure out some long-term solutions to the train. It will probably, if I'm honest with you, will be an ongoing issue. The trains are getting longer. They have some personnel issues with staffing and things like that that are creating some issues for us. The trains were, I think, 1 mile. Now they're up to 5 miles long.
Wow.
So when you're talking about a 5 mile long train, that, can extend the whole frontage of the city if there's an issue. So just be aware of that. We are working on it. We do have communications with their emergency operations, and when there is a crossing blocked, we do try to communicate that that creates a life safety issue for us and get their superintendents out here moving on it. But it's going to be an ongoing situation. The city council did allocate funding to finish the design for the grade separation, which will create a bridge over the train track, or actually under the train tracks at Pennsylvania. They're looking at California too. But those are long-term projects. They're going to take a while. There's a lot of funding. There's a lot of approvals that have to go through with the railroad and Caltrans. But we are working on it. We've got the congressman behind us trying to push for that forward. So the best thing I can say is just know your way around. Try to get out. Find alternative routes, Highland Springs, 1st Street, 4th Street, that you can get out of your community. That's good to know, regardless of the train situation, just an emergency situation, or if there's a traffic collision that's blocking a route into your neighborhood, it's a good way to know another access point to your neighborhood. So just practice those things, share it with your neighbors. But the train situation, like I said, is going to be an ongoing issue, but we're trying to resolve as best we can. When we do have blockages, our officers are going out trying to redirect traffic so we don't end up with a situation similar to the June 15th incident. And if you aren't aware, the reason why that incident was so severe, there was Highland Springs on-ramp at Highland Springs was closed for some construction. It was also during commute time. So if you're not aware, Beaumont is a major transportation corridor with the 60 terminating in the city, the I-10 corridor, plus people coming up the 79 from the Hemet Valley. So when you get into commute times, you have all those people who are trying to access either Eastern Riverside County, Western Riverside County. So that's why that situation was so bad that day. We do have a relationship with the CHP, so if we do have another incident similar, we can shut down 79, reroute traffic, keep those commuters out of the city until we're able to resolve train issues. So just keep that in mind.
I do have a question. Do you have any special tips for us seniors regarding the holiday season and shopping and these parking lot issues that we've seen in the past? Of course, Albertsons is in Banning, but the Walmart shopping center, which tends to be very bad during the holidays.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of like I touched on earlier, I wouldn't say be paranoid, but absolutely be vigilant and be aware of your surroundings. If you notice somebody that you think is following you or keeping eyes on you, absolutely don't walk out to your car. You can say something to security, who will gather the information you have, and if they need to, they can always contact law enforcement and we can come out and at minimum do what's called a check vehicle, go and talk to that person. Look suspicious. Another option or another thing to absolutely look out for when you're doing your online shopping, just make sure you're inputting the correct information, correct credit card information. Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but just be cognizant, pay attention to what you're doing. I know a lot of times people sometimes will miss a digit or they'll send it to the wrong address or sometimes they're not even paying attention to what site they're buying from. I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that like to buy off of like social media. They'll see an ad or something on Facebook for something they might want to get a loved one as far as a gift goes. However, that clipping or that page may not be legitimate, and now you're not only giving these people your credit card information, but you're giving them money. So absolutely just be cognizant, be aware of where you're spending your money, and as far as the shopping goes, don't be afraid to call us. You don't have to call 911. You can call a non-emergency line, and they can send an officer out to, at minimum, like I said, do a check vehicle, contact that person, especially if they are just loitering. There's always options.
Okay, so we pretty well,
Again, with the train issue, I taught traffic school for 11 years back in the late 90s, and at that time there was a DMV law that the trains were only allowed to block intersections for like 10 minutes before they were fined or something to that effect. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, so there are some laws on the books. The issue is you're talking local government versus federal government, so it's sort of a David and Goliath issue. If there was a municipal fine issued to them, $100, whatever, they may or may not pay it, but it really doesn't impact the situation. It's going to take federal backing to get any kind of change and help with grade crossings that will allow the train to move uninterrupted. So that helps answer.
and so this is also something that we as citizens can actually try to push forward, and I can say that I was so excited to really meet someone that drives the train. So would you stand up? This is Chris and Mike's son. No. He's in Nebraska, but I've always wanted to meet someone who was a train engineer, because one day I might be able to go and get in the locomotive and beep that horn. Toot toot. Well, thank you so much. What I want to do is make sure that you have our handouts here, how to tell if I'm being scammed. That was a good presentation. Thank you so much.
And we're here for a few minutes too, so if anybody else has any additional questions, we can try to help.
And also on the back for giveaway, we have important telephone numbers. So pick that up. It's magnetized. We have some papers here, and we'd like for you to fill it out. What would you like for us to cover in our Neighborhood Watch meetings? What topics would you like for us to cover? We always have the Beaumont Police here because that's a part of our Neighborhood Watch. We've had the Banning Police here because we live in both cities. When you're coming home, you're in Beaumont. When you're going out down Highland Springs, you're in Banning. So we all need to work together. There's another one here called Responsible Compassion for the Homeless. There are people that are always giving money to the homeless. And we are asking you, please, to tell everyone, give it to the nonprofits. Don't give it to the people standing with the cards. There are people who are saying, oh, I'm a veteran, oh, I'm homeless, oh, here's mother. They found one in Home Depot. She had her kids there, and it turned out the person that was picking her up was in a Mercedes. It's like, okay, because they're making lots of money. They're making so much. It used to be a Beaumont Police that came to our Neighborhood Watch meetings, and just as an aside to find out what was going on, he stood right there on Highland Springs under the underpass. And he made so much money that day. He said, well, maybe, no, kidding. But he was just saying, and he would tell people, don't give me money. He'd show them the badge. But this is what continues, and you have a lot of nonprofits that are helping. You have Carol's Kitchen that can feed them. You have help. You have other places they can go to. So please pick these up. Hold this for me, please. Also, when Sanjay was here, this will be on here, you have lip balm, Sanji, that they left a lot of lip balm. So please take those. And then there is one of these emergency from Loma Linda when they were here. So please, we have a lot of giveaways that we want you guys to take care of. And thank you so much for coming. And they will be around for you to answer questions, your questions. All right, thank you. Good job, everybody.